that's ready to go, they'll say, well, who's he? So I can send them the video recording so they can see you. So just a quick little, what would you say in a workshop to establish credibility and connection to your audience? You don't have to give us your whole resume, but a little bit of your background and then why you were brought to PCA and why you're interested in sharing this message. And then you can jump right into eTank. And I'll time you for 20 minutes. We'd like you to try to get through the principle if you can, but if the timer goes off, feel like you can finish your sentence. You don't have to stop.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so, what do people typically do in regards to their bio? Is it like about a minute or something, or is there?
Yeah, I usually say like a short little paragraph. You actually already wrote one. The very first assignment for the course was to tell us, a little bit about yourself. So most people, that's the bio that they use. They might tweak it a little bit, but yeah, I mean, we don't want you to read write a whole page, but it's nice for the audience to know who you are and what you are, just to get, to establish credibility. Because most of them are like, why do I have to be here? Who is this guy? What does he know about sports? Why should it, So it's nice. And instead of you getting up there saying, well, I was the state championship, blah, 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 it's funny to kind of brag about yourself. So
compare myself to others, right?
Yeah. It's awkward too when somebody's reading it about you and you're like, where do I look? What do I do? But it's, it is valuable, I think. And people, because I don't always talk about like my background necessarily in every aspect, but when they hear that and they say, oh, you played lacrosse, you played 2 sports in college, and oh, and you coached little kids, it's nice for them to connect that way.
Okay. So my name's Mick Weber.
Yep.
And I appreciate your time today. And just a quick blurb about my background. I was a college strength coach at Oklahoma State and Illinois State. And the primary reason that I'm here with Double Goal Coach or the Positive Coaching Alliance is once I became a parent, then I started teaching youth and middle school sports. And so I've coached football, soccer, volleyball, and basketball. And I think once you become a parent, you realize how important it is for your children to have a coach that would be a double goal coach. And my daughter, fortunately, has had a basketball coach that was certified through the PCA, and he's the only guy she talks about in regards to the impact he's had on her. So I fell in love with the association from that point forward, and I'm just glad to be here, and want to emphasize that this is a workshop, so it's interactive. We're here to learn from each other. So as we go through this, I'd like for you guys to be interactive and participate. We're all on the same team, and like I said, you guys have a wealth of knowledge that we can share with with each other. It's really going to help all of us learn through this. So looking forward to your participation. So now you want me to just jump into slide?
You can just jump right into the eTank. Yep.
So slide 21 is what I'm starting on.
Hi, Seth.
So, hey, how you doing?
Good.
Good. If it gets too noisy, just tell me, because I got a bunch of kids coming in here in a minute. I got the door closed, so if it's too noisy, just let me know.
Okay.
Thanks, Seth.
How you doing, Mick?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Good. Good, man. Good, man.
Here. Okay, so we've just finished that part. So the double goal coach, just to reiterate, we have 2 goals. We're striving to win, and as we said before, winning is about being competitive, and we don't emphasize the scoreboard. We emphasize winning, and that's what the PCA is all about. And even more importantly, we teach life lessons, and everything about the PCA for me is about relationships, building relationships, and those are life lessons. And so as coaches, I think we have a huge responsibility to not only strive to win and to produce winning ways, winning cultures, but we also want to teach life lessons. See, let me get a clicker on there. So the 3 principles that we're going to talk about are filling the emotional tank, the elm tree of mastery, and honoring the game. So the first principle that I want to dive into is filling the emotional tank. So we start out with a quote from Maya Angelou. And if I can have Seth, do you mind reading that for me? Oh, you don't have it in front of you, do you?
Yeah, I have it here. I have it here.
Okay. Okay, Kelly, can you read that for me, please?
Sure. It says, I've learned that people will forget what you've said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel.
Okay. So what is it to you, Kelly?
It just hits home with me because I think about a lot of coaches that I've had in my life and how I felt being on their team or being under their care at practice or at a game. I know how I felt. Some I felt really good about and some I felt really nervous about. And I can't remember one thing they told me. I can't remember specifics, but I just know like when that whistle blew, some of them I was like fired up and ready to go, and other ones I was shaking in my shoes.
So do you have some coaches, years later that you think of in a different way?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Do you think it was that emotional connection, how they made you feel?
Sure.
Okay. Seth, do you have any input on that?
No, I think it's a great quote. I mean, it's someone who's coached for a while. It took me a couple of years to kind of realize that quote, but once it kind of sank in, they were kind of no truer words spoken.
I agree. Yeah, the same for me. And when I talk.
Hello?
I think he froze.
Oh, okay. I would say.
He'll come back. Come back, Nick. Come back.
Mm-hmm.
Ah. It must be his internet connection.
Yeah.
And we have an opportunity.
Here we go. You froze for a little bit there, Mick. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Someone was trying to call my phone. I'm on my hotspot. I apologize.
Oh,
okay. So filling the emotional tank, the PCA likes to use a gas tank analogy because really it is like a tank. And the gas station, it comes from the things we say and do. And so athletes with an empty tank versus athletes with a full tank, there's a huge difference in the participation we get from them. What we tend to find with athletes on an empty tank are more pessimistic versus optimistic. Athletes with a full tank will be more optimistic in their approach. If you have an empty tank, you're going to give up more easily, and you tend to be less coachable. And I think we'll agree those are all attributes that we're not wanting our culture to display. But if we have an athlete with a full tank, they tend to deal better with adversity. They're more coachable, and for me, they believe in themselves. If we can keep athletes' tanks filled, they believe in themselves, and importantly, they believe in us. So we want to try to keep that emotional tank on full. So how do we do that? Seth, you have any ideas? What would we do to keep an emotional tank full for an athlete on your team?
Just continue to focus on what they can control, their effort,
Okay.
and make sure that they know that it's not all about the scoreboard.
Okay, that's awesome. That's great. Kelly, you have any comments? Filling emotional tanks?
Yeah, I just think just encourage them, even when they fail, even when they make mistakes. Just keep encouraging them and cheering them along, no matter what. I think kids are really hard on themselves, especially when they make mistakes, and they put themselves down a lot more than I think I realized before I started coaching. So just the constant encouragement to keep them pumped up really helps.
That's awesome. Those are really good. So we also need to be aware of what drains the tank and what fills the tank. And if we look at the slide, criticism and correction. Now, the PCA is not saying that you don't use criticism and correction. What they're saying is there needs to be a balance in that and a ratio to that. Versus criticizing and correcting too much, we want to be tank fillers. We want to give praise. We want to give encouragement. And the interesting thing about encouragement is it needs to be truthful, authentic. And I think kids know if it's just a hey, nice job, nice job. They tend to know whether you're being truthful or just saying that to say it. And it needs to be specific. And we can all relate to that in everything we do, even from coaching to relationships we have in and out aside of sports. Specific praise is great. An example is, hey, that was a great job blocking out on that rebound. Nice job. That's specific and it's truthful. It's something you just witnessed, so it really resonates with them. We're also going to drain tanks if we show sarcasm when we have remarks with our kids. So versus that, we want to express appreciation. I think something that we overlook sometimes is ignoring. I know I've been in situations with coaches that they don't want any input. They don't want to hear from you. They don't want to listen. It's their way. It's their program. They're going to do it their way. And I think what we're finding is that drains tanks. Kids don't feel like they're involved in the process. So we want to do a lot of listening. And then something else we need to be aware of is our nonverbals. Kelly, can you think of anything that would be a nonverbal thing that would drain an emotional tank?
I think just the look on some coaches' faces when their players make a mistake, this kind of stuff, and shaking their heads and just looking down at the ground. I think that's what I remember my coaches doing.
As a coach, have you done those things?
I think I'm more of I've caught my daughter has caught me doing that. Like, I don't try to, but like if somebody, they had this great play and the last shot, gets missed, I tend to just go, I keep a smile on my face. I'm like, oh, like I just get
that's
that
right.
real quick ugh, and then I try to mask it by looking happy.
Yeah. So as a coach, I mean, you make mistakes along the way too.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Seth, anything you do, what's your nonverbals?
Oof. I think Kelly kind of hit them all, but yeah, like I said, before I kind of became enlightened a little bit, I had every nonverbal reaction that Kelly just mentioned. Looking down the ground, the scowl. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I know for my daughter, when she had a volleyball coach, there was an eye roller, and you could just see the emotion of the whole team. When he would roll his eyes, he would do it very slowly and just with a lot of emotion, and you could just see the whole team just sink a level. And I know my daughter talked, more about his eye rolling than what he had to coach for that. Gosh, you see Coach roll his eyes all the practice. So it was a real drainer for her, and you could just see the emotion on the kids' faces. So we want to be aware of those things, and that is something that can be a challenge for all of us. Just like Kelly said, I mean, when it's the last basket of the game, you miss it and you're full of emotion. I think it's cool that you said, hey, I smile through it. I'm still going, we're all competitive. Okay, so Seth, if I had to ask you a question, and Seth, you're representing a lot of coaches now, just so you know that.
I see that.
We're each about 20 coaches in the room, so.
And they're all named Seth and Kelly. But
that's great. We can talk to each other too.
That's right. So what if you said there was one thing that you as a coach can do to be more effective? What would that be?
One thing as a coach to be more effective. Really I think kind of tune into your players, because every player is different. Some players you could talk to a certain way, some players you have to talk to a different way, and just knowing that, I think really makes you an effective coach and an effective communicator.
That's awesome. So the communication with individuals and knowing their personalities is what is very important to you.
Yes. That's
a great comment. Kelly, you have any ideas on that?
I asked this question a couple weeks ago at a workshop, and the coach said I could be paid more. That would make me more effective. I said, well, how much are you paid now? And he said, nothing. I said, well, okay, then that is a good point.
That's right.
I just think being more aware of the things that I do that are real subtle. Like I've got the drill down, I've got the practice plan, I've got my lineup, I've got all that stuff that I spend so much time on. It's the subtle stuff. It's the stuff when they're not paying attention. Like you said, your daughter looked over and saw the eye roll. That's not something that coach planned on doing. It's something he just did. So I think being more aware of the things I do that I didn't plan on doing, and the messages I'm sending, the unintentional messages that I'm sending to my players by my example.
Okay, so more proactive and less reactive.
Correct. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, so if we look at the research, our founder Jim Thompson put together this program in 1998, and he did it after looking at a lot of the research. What is effective? Is there a ratio? Is there something that we can do to be more effective? And what he found was in any type of relationship, whether it's a teacher or marital relationship, that if you up the ratio of positive to negatives, you're going to get a magic ratio, and that ratio happens to be 5-to-1. Now, that doesn't mean that you walk around with a clipboard at every practice and check off 5 check marks to 1 check mark every time you do something. But what it does tell us is that there is a magic ratio where you start to see a culture turn around. You see a different culture, and it's 5 positives to 1 negative. So we've got we can take a quick look at Increasing Your Plus-Minus Ratio by Phil Jackson, who coincidentally is on our board of directors. And if you guys have had a chance to read any of his books, I mean, it's just fabulous material for coaches, so I encourage you to take a look at some of that. And so here's the video. So I'm not actually going to play that, though, right, Kelly?
No, you don't have to play it. You're good.
Okay. Okay, so when we're receiving feedback, we know that athletes thrive on positive feedback, but your team makes a lot of mistakes. So as a double goal coach, we're going to look at some ways that we can give them feedback that they need for improvement. So as we go into these the E-Tank toolkit, what I want to kind of throw out there is, anytime we have a toolkit, what it is it's tools for you to communicate. Every tool might not be your favorite tool, and every tool might not be the best tool for that kid. And like when Seth said earlier, you've got to know your kids, so you've got to know which one of these tools may be more effective for each personality, or the team's personality. It's also got to resonate with you. So what I'm going to ask you coaches to do is, take out a pen or a highlighter. This is on page 40 and 41 in the books that we have. If you'll just flip over to that as I go through this, what I would like for you to do is listen to these 5 things, pick the one that resonates with you, circle it, highlight it, and then when we're through with that, I'm going to pair you folks up, give you some time I want you to interact with each other and say, okay, here's why I picked this resonates with me, and I want you to be able to take that one thing into your practice the next time you go in with your kids and put it into action right away. So let's share that with each other as we go. So if we look at the first one, let me turn over to my book here. Okay, so first thing we want to do is avoid a non-teachable moment. Seth, what in the world is a non-teachable moment? Have you experienced that?
Many times. In fact, when I coached, I kind of had a rule that I never really talked about the game after the game was played, because a moment usually means there's too much emotion in the situation from both myself and the players. So we always talked about it the next day and watched film. Usually when we talked about the game, it was very general right after the game and a lot more detailed the day after, so there wasn't any emotion in it.
Nice. And you mentioned one thing there, emotion. When I think of non-teachable moments, to me it's when emotions are high. And when emotions are high, we don't tend to have a listening ear. And that's what I hear you saying right there. I totally agree with you. It's not a teachable moment post-game.
I think he's getting another phone call.
Yeah.
I had someone do this earlier today, and they said, non-teachable moments, and they said, I've always been told never pet a growling dog.
I like that. That's
like, I love it. I said that. I said, I'm going to steal that one because that's great.
Never pet, wow, okay.
Never pet a growling dog. Never, avoid a non-teachable moment. Never pet an upset kid or a yelling parent. Never talk to a yelling parent. I was like, I love that.
That is very good. I like that.
I'm sorry, guys. When I get a call, it knocks my hotspot out. I apologize.
That's okay.
Okay. So, Kelly, do you have any experiences with non-teachable moments that you can share with us?
I do. I was just telling Seth, somebody earlier today said to avoid non-teachable moments, he said he's always been taught never pet a growling dog. So he said...
That's great. That's awesome.
I thought that was really good. So I'll remember that next time. If you've got a player that's upset, visually upset, or growling, or a parent that's growling or upset, let them cool off first before you try to talk to them.
That's fantastic. I totally agree with that. So we recognize the thing that seems to be around this is emotions. We've got to be a good eye with knowing is this the right time, and typically it is the next day. Let emotions calm down, and now everybody's receptive to moving forward. The second tool is to criticize in private, and I think we all hold our hands up and say, well, duh, everybody knows you don't criticize in private, but I still think we tend to do that reactively. And when Kelly talked about being proactive, I think that's one of those things that we have to kind of ingrain in ourselves, is to criticize in private. And it doesn't have to be in the privacy of your office. It can be simply pulling a player over one-on-one during practice and letting them know, here's the changes that we'd like to see. I think as coaches, if we look at this in this scenario, if we're at a practice and we've got assistant coaches, we've got players on the field, and our athletic director comes on the field and lets us know some things that he wants to critique in our performance, we're probably not going to be real receptive to that. We'd probably prefer for that person to call us or maybe walk out on the field and say, hey, I'd like to see you after practice, got a few things I want to go over. I think our players, our assistant coaches, our trainers, everyone involved wants to receive the same type of respect. They would as soon have that, criticize in private. I think it's very important. Asking permission. This one to me is interesting. I think this is where, for me, I get more. It's more of certain kids on my team, I think, receive asking them permission to give them information better than others. So it's a tool that I use, but not with every kid. Kelly, have you ever experienced asking a kid permission to coach them or give them information?
Yeah, I just did it with my own child. She was doing the center draw in lacrosse, and I noticed she wasn't doing it right, and the coaches weren't fixing it. So I don't know if it's good to do as a parent, but I brought her over the other day, and I said, I have a couple suggestions for you. Would you be willing to hear them that might help you make your center draw a little bit stronger? And she was like, yeah, Mom, sure, whatever. And I was prepared that if she said, no, Mom, I'm good, I was prepared to just walk away. So.
And that's perfect. And I think the key word there is suggestions. Mm-hmm. I think most of us are open to suggestions. And you're right, if it's not the timing, then we're going to walk away from it. And maybe there's a curiosity factor. They may come back later and say, hey, you mentioned some suggestions. What did you want to talk to me about? Mm-hmm. So I think it stirs up their interest. But they may not be ready for that information then. So I think, there are certain kids asking permission is a great tool. Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's 20.
Wow.
You okay to stop there?
Yeah, I thought I'd get through that faster.
Yeah, no, that's okay. You did a great job. Congratulations, by the way, first of all.
Yeah,
Second of all, you brought us in. You made it interactive. You had us telling stories. That takes time. So whenever people practice this for themselves, you don't have other people giving you responses, so we don't usually account for time for that. But I would much rather have you get us involved and be more interactive than to hit every single bullet point. So, okay. I mean, if I had to pick one or the other, because I can sit here and look, and I have the slide up, but I can sit here and look at the slide and say, tools for effective receivable feedback, avoid non-teachable moments, criticize in private, ask permission. I kind of can figure out what they are, and if I can't, they're in the book on page 40 and 41. Correct. So I would much rather you pull some audience answers out and say, when have you ever done that? Because that's real to me. You telling me about it is good, but even better is hearing a coach say, this is how I've done it with my players that were frustrated. I've said, do you know that if you pull out left, you're going to have a better angle for the shot? That's what I want to hear. That's what I can take home with me, and I can remember that. So I think you did a fantastic job. Seth, what are some positives that you liked about what Mick did, about Mick's workshop?
No, I agree. I think he drew us in. I think he was I think his cadence was good. I think he didn't really go up or down. I think it was a very calm, controlling, I'm in charge, but I'm going to bring you guys in type cadence. So I thought that was really good.
Yeah, great. Anything that you'd like to see more of, or any wish that you'd have if you had to give him a suggestion?
I guess just I mean, he got through the material, just maybe get through a little bit quicker, especially if since we got a lot of slides, but I really thought it was good. I picked up a lot from it. So
thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree the same thing. I think your cadence, it's a good word for it, is very smooth. I put down smooth first thing. Yeah, and you have a good demeanor about you. You're talking about some things that are serious, but then you're smiling on the other hand. It's a good balance. And I think there is a balance between confidence and humility. And I think you have a good balance with that, talking about, things that you've done and your daughter, and, we're not all perfect. And I felt really connected. I thought that was great. I really like how you talked about relationship building. That's so important, and that's why we call it connection. That's how we connect E-Tank. So I think you did a nice job at bringing that in. And it was a conversation. Your workshop was a conversation. You were talking, you were asking, you were talking, you were asking, you're building on what we said. I thought that was really, really well done too. And I liked your specific questions, like, Seth, how can we keep the tank full? And Kelly, what do you think about this? And I know in a room, I would encourage you to do some more pairing and sharing, because in a big room, if you just get one, which I know you would do, but that would be something that I would look for opportunities to say, maybe get in a group with 2 people and talk about how you'd handle this for the scenario or for whatever. Because sometimes in a room, even though you're comfortable, if you ask your first question and nobody raises their hand and nobody answers, a lot of times you're like, oh, shoot, now what? So it's just that the audience isn't comfortable answering by themselves yet. Even audiences of adults are a lot like little kids. They don't want to they don't want to be brave enough to put out an answer. It's really funny. I laugh all the time how my third grade teaching skills come in more in handy for these workshops than they ever do for anything else. I also like the way that you, like when you were talking about your daughter's coach eye rolling, like you had animation. Like it's a little subtle thing, but it makes a big difference. Like act out, throwing your arms up in the air and rolling your eyes, you know, that can bring life to the workshop. So it's not like Mick, the presenter. It's like, you know, you're showing us what he's doing and what it's like. And whenever I'm talking about nonverbals that coaches, I act them out like, oh, jeez, what are you thinking, you know? And it just makes the audience laugh, and they're like, man, I've seen that, you know? And I act out the way my high school coach did. I had 2 high school coaches, one in the fall, one in the spring. How my high school coach in the fall, how she acted when I screwed up. How my high school coach in the spring, how she acted when, and it's totally different. You know, one was like this, and one was like, oh, what are you thinking? So, you know, however you can do to animate it, it's helpful too. And I like just some of the phrases that you used. You know, be proactive. I mean, that was, even though I said it, you came back and you reviewed it. I didn't say it, but you took what I said and made it into be proactive, not reactive. Because I think that's what a lot of people that come to these workshops get out of it. That instead of saying this is what you shouldn't do, it's, hey, let's think about what we're going to do before the situation happens. Yeah. So my only suggestion for you would be to, I mean, as Seth said, you know, maybe pick up the pace a little bit. Don't feel like you have to explain every single bullet point on the slides. Because sometimes a good story or a good answer from an audience member took the place of that slide, and I would just click right through it. Gotcha. Okay. You want to use the slides to support you, but you don't want to have to be a slave to the slides and make sure you got every single point. So great. That would be my suggestion. But I thought it was real strong. Nice job.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Seth, you ready to go?
Yeah, let me just make sure you guys can't hear any of the background noise, right?
There's no more noise than there is at my house right now. I'll tell you
that. Good. All right, let me just. All right. Hey guys, how you doing? My name is Seth Goodman. I'm coming to you guys as a representative of the Positive Coaching Alliance. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I was a women's college basketball coach at Monroe College for 11 years at the junior college level. Sent a lot of girls to 4-year schools, won 4 national championships. I've also coached at the, on the Olympic level. I was assistant coach at the U17 Olympic qualifiers. I've also coached youth lacrosse, football, as well as basketball. And I'm coming here to you today to facilitate a discussion about positive coaching. And I say facilitate because I'm not here to talk at you. I'm not here to take away everything that you've done for the last 15 years. There's a lot of successful coaches in here. I'm not here to tell you that you've been doing things all wrong. What I want to do is facilitate a discussion between yourselves and me about some different techniques that you could use to kind of maybe tweak or improve what you're doing. You may not like everything that we talk about, but if you could use some tools and have another kind of weapon to use when you were talking to kids to kind of get through to them, I think that would be a positive thing. So I want you to take out of our discussion today what you can, and I want you to know that I'm here to facilitate, and you guys will probably be doing a lot more teaching than I will today. Again, who knows what the PCA is? Raise. Kelly, what is the PCA?
The Positive Coaching Alliance.
Thank you. What does being a positive coach mean?
I think it just means being an upbeat, encouraging, fun coach.
That's great. Mick, you have anything to add? Or?
Yeah, fun, definitely, and I'm a big fan of the word empowerment. To me, positively means you're empowering other people. So I like that.
Fantastic. Yeah, I like both those answers. You know, unfortunately, in these times, kids have become very sensitive, and the word positive is almost has a negative connotation, because a lot of coaches are told to be more positive because a lot of the kids and parents these days can't handle situations. You know, they say, hey, you know, Mick, great job of not getting back on defense and letting your man score, or Kelly, here's a 7th place ribbon for, you know, a 6-man race. You know, people think that's what positive means, and it couldn't be further from the truth. And in fact, at the Positive Coaching Alliance, that is exactly what we're trying to stay away from. We want to be, you know, we want to have genuine praise and genuine criticism. If it's just praise just to try to be positive, or if it's phony, it's really not effective, and it actually turns into a negative. So being a positive coach, you know, we want to have genuine praise, and we want to make sure that we are telling the kids encouraging the kids, but on things that they do well and things and behaviors and actions that we want to continue. What we want to do what we want to do is harness the power of positivity and become a double goal coach. And like we spoke about, a double goal coach is being successful on the court as well as off the court, and using on the court or on the field examples to become better off the court. Who could think of some of the qualities that athletics teaches you that you could take from on the field to your everyday life? Mick, why don't you tell me?
I think the thing that most of us typically would say there would be hard work ethic and discipline. I think that's associated with a lot of things we do in sports. On my end, I go to relationship building, the ability to do things with a team, and then to like you said, to be empowered by a coach along the way, so I can develop skills for life. Which a lot of our kids probably aren't thinking about that. That's something that we oversee. But I think hard work ethic and discipline.
Absolutely. How about you, Kelly?
I would say how to push through when things are hard. I think it really helped me learn a work ethic that just when you think you're ready to give up and things are really tough, that I've learned to dig down deep and push through.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm assuming a lot of you guys played sports and learned a lot of those lessons on the field that we spoke about: hard work, fair play, teamwork, resilience, and it's taken them into your everyday life. And I think that we could all say that we've probably better adults today because of the lessons that we learned as a youth, as an athlete. So I'm gonna ask you guys another question. Kelly, why'd you become a coach?
I had a lot of really good coaches in my background, in my youth, and I've had some real bad coaches. And I just wanted to make sure that kids had a really good experience in sports, because I love sports. I love all sports. And I just want to make sure that kids keep playing so they can play as long as they can, so they can have a good experience. Absolutely.
Mick, why'd you become a coach?
I started out in strength coaching which is somewhat of a helping athletes maximize their opportunity. And so I really enjoy helping people, especially athletes, maximize what they have. I want them to maximize their strength, their speed, their intelligence, the controllable factors, and you just get so much satisfaction out of helping athletes do those things.
Absolutely. I mean, those are both really, really great answers. And the one thing neither one of you guys mentioned was winning, 6 national championships, or winning the U10 AAU soccer, championship. It was all about helping kids and maximizing their efforts, and those were great answers. And I'm going to share a story with you, and I think he got a lot of play on ESPN, but being in New York, this was on the news cycle for months. It was about a young autistic kid in Buffalo who really loved basketball but didn't have the physical or mental acumen to play. So the kid, the student became the manager on the team, and the coach let him be a manager for 4 years. And in his final game, he promised the kid that he would put him in for a few minutes a game. And I'm not sure what the team's record was or what the situation was, but they were up by about 12 points with 4 minutes left, and the coach kept his word and put the kid in the game, and the kid knocked down 7 3-pointers. And it was on ESPN, again, the local news cycles, and it was incredible. And and I'm going to venture to say that when those kids who were on the team talk about their experience playing high school basketball when they become fathers, they're going to talk about that kid in those shots. And even when they become grandparents, that's what they're going to remember. They're not going to remember as much the record or how what place they came in or where they were seated in the playoffs. They're going to remember that kid and those shots and what that meant to him. And and the coach also taught the kids a valuable lesson about keeping your word. That the game was kind of close. He didn't need to put them in the game, but just teaching them those lessons. Those are some of the reasons why you become a coach. And just to bring it back to current events, Pat Summitt passed away yesterday, and when you talk about successful coaches, there were very few more successful than her. And when you watch the news and ESPN, you just listen to all the players, and they don't talk about the championships, they don't talk about the wins, they talk about how she made them a better person, how they're the women they are today because of what she's done. And it just really kind of hit me, and I wanted to put that in my presentation because that's really what being a coach is about. And I think all of us in here strive to have that impact on players. So, with that being said, I'm going to talk today about the elm tree of mastery, and the elm tree of mastery. It's an acronym. The first letter is E is for effort, L is for learning and improving, and M is for mistakes are okay. Now, I want to go to our first slide here, the elm tree of mastery. You guys have that?
Yep.
Okay. Now, there's two ways that we could look at an athletic event, either through the scoreboard definition or the mastery definition. The scoreboard definition is focused on what it says on the scoreboard, whether we have more points than the other team or we don't. The mastery definition is, focusing on the skill, focusing on the effort level, focusing on how to get better. And I just want to talk a little bit about each of those. You look at the results, okay? The scoreboard definition, again, is about the results. The mastery definition is about the effort. There's two big things about that. Number one, the scoreboard isn't always a good indicator. There are times where you probably win games by 50, lose games by 50. When you win a game by 50, does that necessarily mean your team played well and did what you wanted them to do, or did it just mean you were that much better than the opponent? Same thing if you lose by 50. If a Division I team like Duke played the local community college in your area, the community college would probably lose by about 50 or 60. But does that mean they're a bad team, or did they just get outmatched by a more talented or a team that had more resources? So the scoreboard is not always a good measure of how well your team played. Second thing is that you want to control the controllables, and I think Mick talked about that. You can't control everything. You can't control the referees. You can't control the crowd. You can't control the opponent. Sometimes you can't even control, the score. Sometimes you play great defense and team scores anyway. Mark Jackson on ABC says, good defense, better offense. And sometimes kids just hit shots or make an incredible kick, and there's nothing you can do about it. So you want to control what you can control, which is your attitude, which is what you do for your effort and how you play the game. The second part is the scoreboard definition talks about comparison with others as opposed to learning. Carol Dweck, who's on our advisory board, talks about the talent gap as opposed to the growth mindset. Now, Mick, what do you think if you focus on talent, what do you think the drawback is to that?
If you focus just on talent, I'm not so sure you're going to get great effort. Or that's been my experience. The more talented athletes I've worked with don't always seem to be the hardest workers.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if I just focus on talent, it becomes a comparison model to other players.
Right.
And ones that don't have the talent become discouraged because the only comparisons or the encouragement I give is talent-based.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And as Carol Dweck says, a talent base means you have a ceiling. So imagine going to your job or to performing any task, and this is your ceiling because this is where your talent level puts you. Would you be motivated to work harder?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not, because you already know through your talent where you're going to end up. But in a growth mindset, it's the ability. You focus on the ability to improve. You focus on getting better, and that you can reach new heights with your athletic success if you work hard and put forth the effort and are teachable and all the positive things that we want out of our players. So with that mindset, I think kids are excited to come to practice because, hey, you know what? If I get better and I listen to the coach, I'm going to become a better athlete. And I'm going to work twice as hard and do what the coach said because I really, really want to become a better athlete. And I think that kind of works in life too. At your job, if you know you can only reach certain heights, you're going to be stifled. The third is, and this is where everybody rolls their eyes, mistakes are not okay as opposed to mistakes are okay. We don't want you, here at the Positive Coaching Association, we don't want you to compliment someone who throws, a pass 10 feet out of bounds. We really want to correct the mistake if it's in the right situation, and then move on to the next play. Because the fact of the matter is that you want your kids to play hard. There's still a lot of game, there's still a lot of season to be played. If you crush a kid for one mistake, that might crush them for the whole game, and that might even crush them for even a couple games or an entire season. All right, so that's what we're trying to avoid here at the PCA. I'm going to just share a real quick story for you before we move on, and it kind of encompasses all three. I went to college on a lacrosse scholarship, but I didn't start playing until 7th grade. And I grew up in New York City, and there was no lacrosse 30 years ago in New York City. So as a 7th grader, they gave me a big long defenseman's pole and said, "Go ahead and get at it." And I got kicked out of every game, not because I was vicious or brutal or did something unsportsmanlike. In lacrosse, if you get 3.5 minutes worth of penalty minutes, you're out of the game. And being that I didn't know the rules, and being that they gave me a nice 6-foot pole defensive stick, I just went to town. And my goal as a 7th grader, and my coach said for me, was stay in the whole game. That was it. It didn't matter how many goals I gave up, and didn't matter what I did, stay in the whole game. And then as I moved on to 8th grade, 9th grade, I kind of got the hang of it. And if it wasn't for Coach Stein, who didn't compare me with the other kids, knew I was new at the game, and kind of embraced my mistakes, corrected me, and then encouraged me and set reasonable goals for me, I wouldn't have been able to go play lacrosse in college. So on a personal note, I'm a living testimony that these tactics work. Now, we'll go on to the next slide. This is a slide by Claude Julien, who's the longest tenured NHL coach, has over 500 wins and 2 Stanley Cups with the Boston Bruins. He talks about release and reload. Now, basically, what a release and reload is kind of an action that you do when you make a mistake, to kind of brush it off or kind of move on to the next play. Kelly, as a coach, what kind of reload or release tactics do you have with your players, if any?
This year we use Shake It Off, because I had a bunch of little itty-bitty girls, and Taylor Swift is their god. So anything we could do, I'd play the song Shake It Off at the beginning of the season. And so anytime they made a mistake, I just wanted them to shake it off and just move on, just forget about it, keep going. Because in lacrosse, the play's already down the field. By the time these girls are done beating themselves up, it moves that fast. So I talked to them more about, you don't have time in this game to be mad at yourself. You got to get right back on, so shake it off and go.
That's true. How about you, Mick? Do you use anything?
I really like that one. That's a new one for me, and I like that. Thanks for sharing that. Mine is brush it off. Man, just brush it off. We got to move forward. Past is the past. The game's too fast to not just move forward immediately. So we brush it off and move forward.
Okay, those are both great techniques, and those are important to kind of help the kids move on. Before we say, well, that only works with little kids, it doesn't work with older kids. We've seen numerous reload, release, and reload tactics all during the NBA Finals. How many times did you hear LeBron James or Tyronn Lue or Steph Curry said, "It's one game. We lost by 30, but we're coming back next. We're coming back next game. It's one game. The series isn't over." That's a release and reload technique. That's hey, the game's over. We brush it off. We're moving on. Professional athletes do it, and as Kelly said, she has little girls. They do it too. Might be a little bit different techniques. It might be might not be Taylor Swift if you're dealing with high school boys, but it is every coach, every team has their own way of release and reload mistakes. Okay, so as we talked about, we want to give positive feedback to kids, and we want to do it in kind of an effort sort of way. So, Kelly, why don't you give me a quick example of how you could compliment a kid, let's say, in any sport you want, how you could compliment a kid on their effort instead of their results.
I compliment, my kids are swimmers, so one of the things I really try to do is work on technique, and if I praise them for something, it has nothing to do with their time. It always has to do with they had a really strong start, they stayed in streamline on their start, or their flip turn was really fast, or something like that, and I never worry about what place they came in or how much, how fast their race was. It's always on their strong kick or their flip turn or something like that.
That's fantastic. That's a great that's a great example of swimming where the results are very public and kind of personal, where you could compliment effort. In lacrosse, you could tell a player to contest every ground ball instead of getting every ground ball.
Mm-hmm.
They'd like to get every ground ball, but putting forth the effort to contest them is really what you want. Or in soccer, if there's a 50-50 ball, to go up strong and head it, or kind of get after it instead of trying to win every soccer ball. You know, with young kids, you could say, hey, listen, our goal today is run back on defense. You know, I want to get back on defense every single time. I don't want everybody being lazy. That's a good effort goal, instead of saying, let's try to win the game, let's try to make baskets, because some of that stuff is not in your control. You know, some of the best, let's say you're coaching the best team in the league. You might be up by 60, but you might be playing bad. Mick, what's one of the things that you could focus on if you know you're the better team, but you don't want to focus on the scoreboard?
You know, in that scenario, I would probably, you know, if the basketball situation, what I'm going to do is ask them to get back on defense. So I want them to beat the ball back.
Okay.
Regardless of the score, beat the ball back, get in your zone, and you know, let's go from there. Let's pick something that we can improve on. We know the game's in the bag. Obviously, you don't want to run the score up, but that's an effort goal. Hey, let's get back and get into that 2-3 defense, beat the ball back.
That's great, and again, that has nothing to do with the score, like you said. That has everything to do with effort. So, or again, you could say, let's make 6 passes or run this play, you know, in full before we shoot. So, okay, I guess I heard the bell.
That was your time. Yep.
I got 3 more pages of notes.
I know. Oh, tell me about it. I've been at a workshop and I look at the clock. I'm like, oh crap, I have to finish honoring the game in 2 minutes. I can do it. Let's go. You know. It's just a matter of getting used to it. You know, I think you did a fantastic job. I wouldn't be worried too much about the timing. And you know, the good thing is you guys both have so much to work with that cutting down your facilitation is going to be easier. Sometimes there's people I'm like, you know, you got to put some personal stories in there. You really got to get us involved. I mean, you guys are the complete opposite of that. So you've got a good issue to work with. When you've got too much to work with and you got to cut it down, it's easier than saying, you know, we don't have anything here. So I liked a lot. Mick, what did you like a lot? What did you like about what Seth did?
You know, that I really liked the mindset you put us into to start by, you know, saying you're facilitating. So, you know, right away that gave me a different perception of what I'm here for. I'm not just here for a lecture and a listen. You know, you made it clear that, hey, we're going to facilitate. You know, we all have something to share. And I thought that was really good because you know, a lot of times as coaches we have egos and we're sitting there tapping our foot wondering why we're here, or I'm tired, and it was good to hear that, you know, there's no ego involved. Hey, I'm just here to facilitate a discussion that can help all of us. So I really liked that intro. That made me feel better.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I thought that was good too. Anything? Do you have any wishes for Seth? If you had any suggestions for him?
No, the only thing I would say is there were a couple of times when I think he could have used some more, or you could have used some more interaction with the audience. You had a few stretches there that were a little long. Yeah. And even though I was listening, I think if I'd been at the end of the day and tired, I may have tuned out just a little bit. So I think just a little more interaction with the audience, just a couple of times. So I mean, I thought the stories were great, and I thought, you know, the questions were good. There was just a couple of stretches there where it could have used some more audience.
Yeah, I kind of felt that too, and I felt it out as I was going. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree. And the same thing that I said with Mick too. I know in a group you would have us do some parent sharing too. That takes the pressure off of you to have the perfect answer and the perfect question. Just having the audience talk with each other. You guys have dealt with this before. Talk in a group of 2 or 3. You all coach different sports. What are some effort things that you guys praise in your sport? You know, it's just a good way to get discussion going rather than just saying, hey, you give me an answer. Hey, you give me an answer. Hey, you give me an answer. You know, it makes it more of a discussion with everybody involved. Seth, I really like too your tone too. You're very relaxed. You're very conversational, and you're very knowledgeable. And I like that you have a background in a lot of different sports and a lot of different areas. I think that's a major asset that you have. Your introduction was really passionate, and I felt a connection, like, wow, this guy really knows what he's talking about. And you put me at ease. You know, you said that it might not, actually, the one thing you said was you might not like everything you hear, and I was like, oh, don't tell him that. I think it's okay to say, you know, everything here might not apply to you.
Yeah, that's
I almost hated when you said, like, you might not like everything here, because that makes them be like, oh, good, I'm probably not going to like it.
I felt the same way on that comment, too. Exactly.
Yeah. Because they all feel like they're not going to like it already. So if you tell them they're not going to like it, that's like, oh. So I usually just say, you know, you might not be able to use everything because of your sport, but that was just a little.
That's probably good. Better use.
Just a little detail.
Yeah.
But I also like how you said, you know, I'm not here to tell you how to coach. I'm just here to give you different techniques. I think that was really strong. So I like the way you put that. And we're not here to give a 7th place ribbon for a six-person race. I'm like, that's so true. As I'm at my daughter's swim meet and they're handing out ribbons to everybody, I'm like, she didn't earn a ribbon. Like, and she comes out of the pool, I got a ribbon. And I'm like, what did you do? You didn't do anything. You know, crazy. But I thought, you know, I really like the question too. You brought in Pat Summitt. Anything you can do to bring in local, not local, but like current, anything you can throw into a workshop to make it current, just the way you described her and described her impact beyond the scoreboard, and you connected it to Mick and I talking about our experience. I just thought that was great. That was really strong. And I know Pat Summitt's going to be worked into many, many workshops for a few months to come. So I think that's great. The one thing when you were talking about scoreboard definition and mastery definition, I thought you did a great job at really differentiating those. I like the way you even brought up, you know, the scoreboard's not a good measure of how your team played. Think about if Duke played a community college. Like, I thought it was a really clear, simple example to go, you know, you're right. And I don't know if you're the one. Somebody did one of their practice sessions, and they said, if you focus only on the scoreboard, you're really grading everybody on a curve. You're not really giving credit to what your team's doing. And I thought that was kind of a good way to put it too. But you said, what did I say that you kept saying this is the scoreboard definition and this is the mastery definition. And I want you to just go one step further. It's a scoreboard definition of what?
I mean, the scoreboard definition of...
What would you say if I said to you, well, what are you talking about? Scoreboard definition, mastery definition of what?
Oh, of judging your team.
Yeah, well, we have say of success.
Of success, okay.
Yeah, success or of winning. So it's not just a scoreboard definition. It's a scoreboard definition of success, the mastery definition of success, or winning. This is how do you describe winning as just based on the scoreboard, or is winning based on mastery? So just a little tweak there. You also already talked about control, what you would control. And I would probably wait, because a couple slides later it talks about mastery giving players the feeling of control, where they're going to work harder. So I would just bump that down, wait a little bit on that one. But I really like the way you did the Carol Dweck too. A lot of us are major Carol Dweck fans, and it's hard for us not to just go on and on and on about it. And I thought you did a really good job at keeping it real short, talking about the talent trap and that you have a ceiling. I thought you nailed that. That was really good, talking about growth mindset and talent trap. And you brought the audience in too as well for that, which I thought was really good. And then your stories. You're a good storyteller. You know, talking about your lacrosse scholarship and the lacrosse the stick. You know, a long stick. I crack up at these little 7-year-olds I see walking around with these long sticks that are bigger than that. I can picture, if I can bring myself into your story, I like it, and I got the point. And you know, the fact that you even connected it to, that's why I got a scholarship, because I had a coach that cared about my effort more than my outcome. So I thought that was really cool too. Release and reload, I thought it was great the way you bring that out in the audience. The one thing though, use our terminology. Release and reload is what Claude Julien uses, but it's a mistake ritual is the tool. Okay. So instead of saying, like, what's your release and reload, I would say, you know, what's your mistake ritual? The Bruins use release and reload. Kelly used shake it off. Mick used brush it off. But the term is mistake ritual. So just make sure.
All right.
And again, you know, you brought it into current. You brought in the NBA. One more game. It's been really fun to do all these little finals. Do the finals that I've been doing the last 2 weeks during the NBA finals, because I mean we've got like 4 Cleveland trainers, so I'm telling you, I didn't watch all 7 games of the finals, but I can tell you more about what happened during these games. We've got everything from Seth Curry throwing mouth guards to, you know, Steve Kerr breaking clipboards. Like, I've heard it all in these last demos. So, but it's good. It's good to bring in the real stuff so that people can connect to it. So I'm excited about both of you guys getting out there. I want to get you guys out to a workshop as soon as possible. And Sonia DeWitt is going to send you an email that's going to tell you the next steps. But basically what we do is we let you know where workshops are available in your area, and you would pick one principal, 1 or 2. We'll see what we can fit in. 1 or 2 principles that you would do along with a certified trainer. So the certified mentor trainer would be there doing the workshop, and you would jump in and do 1 or 2 principles your first time out, and then we see how you do from there. And if you're ready to go do it by yourself, we'd let you go. We want to get you guys out there by yourself as soon as possible. So we don't like to hold your hand for too long, but we don't want to just send you out into the fire without feeling comfortable. So
that sounds good. Well, the training was awesome, Kelly. It definitely got me ready to go out there. It was
good. Well, I'm psyched. And even to let you know, the first time you go out and do a workshop totally by yourself from beginning to end, we do have a mentor trainer there with you just to have your back in case, you know, anything crazy happens. So we don't quite send you out there totally solo just yet, but the sooner the better as far as I'm concerned.
That's all good.
All right, so thanks, guys. You'll get an email from me probably tomorrow morning that tells you everything you need to do. But congratulations, guys.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it.
Yep, thanks.
All right.